How's everyone doing tonight?
All right.
Happy to be here.
So today we're going to talk about music NFTs with hyperutility. That term gets tossed around a lot. You want to go first?
Yeah, we were talking a little backstage, and so utility has become this just buzzword. And I have seen, I won't go into it, but I've seen some horrible stuff on like mainstream media where people are pitching their NFT projects and, oh, but the utility is what gives it value. Now, way back, and I've seen, on Twitter just the other day, someone was like, oh, it's so great to have this utility conversation now that started in 2021 or something. Back in 19, we were talking about music NFTs, and the utility was just baked in. We didn't have some separate thing that was utility. We thought, wow, we can release music on NFTs with, cool art. Or you couldn't video back then because the storage was so low. But the utility was being able to support a musician directly, being able to have access to them in a Discord group, to go hang out and have a dance party in CryptoVoxels or Decentraland, to get wearables dropped on you. That was all just part of the idea of NFTs and music, a new way to package so much more into it versus just a song that's an MP3. You can have incredible amounts of different experience. So that has always been something from the beginning that utility was just a part of this. So it is important to talk about and touch on because now it does sort of get bandied about like, oh, well, I'm offering my royalties, so I have this great utility. Right. Well, depending on your situation, maybe not. So there's a lot more to go into it than just one type of gimmick or offering. You can have a slew of utility and not really need to hammer away on that specifically.
No, absolutely. Just to kind of give you guys a quick introduction, I'm Reason. I'm a multi-platinum award-winning audio engineer, music producer. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Keit. I run a small tech startup called Weave Music. We make adaptive music, meaning we can change tempo, energy arrangements, and we like to sync it to different things. So sometimes to gameplay, if you jump into water, our music can make it sound like you're underwater. If you take off on a dragon, it will sound like you're flying away. And it comes with a bunch of other nifty features. Our format is something you should look up.
Thomas Emmanuel, Chief Product Officer at Yellowheart, which is a NFT ticketing and music platform founded in 2017. I joined the company in 2018, and Josh and I have built this out. And just to touch on the utility case, for us, we kind of look at it. We launched Kings of Leon as the first major music NFT release last year, and the utility with that was that the NFT was redeemable for like a physical vinyl and a number of other things. But one of the key ones that we saw was the community building, but being able to get into a concert, like even 10 minutes before it goes, before it opens up to the public. And so that was like one of the key utilities. So anyways, we can talk more about that and we'll get into more details. But
yeah, I wanted to add to Ezra's that the way I look at NFTs is literally a framework that you need to build the product into. And then for now, what we have seen is just a single MP3. And then we're seeing, ticketing coming in, and people, and there was a artist on the stage earlier who was talking about how she keeps giving her NFT holders more and more as time goes by. It's not like a one-time wonder that you set it off and then let it just drift. Like it's all about figuring out, like firstly, what to give people, but also I think we need to start talking about interoperability. Like where can you take these NFTs and like if they're talking about music, you usually don't listen to one track on repeat. You want to take your whole library and take it from one world to another and make sure it plays everywhere and plays to the best of its ability.
And to evolve. So the utilities we can offer also evolve. And I actually didn't introduce myself. Everybody calls me Easy in crypto. I do work a bit with a few different projects in the music space. Shout out Cypher.media, Metaverse Music Presents. And I've been in the space for a while. Actually want to shout out a couple of OGs because, sometimes people don't get quite their recognition. So Connie Digital, pioneer in the space, Vandal at DAO Records, check a couple of those people out if you haven't, and you'll see people that have been building for a long time. I do think it's, it's really interesting because, as you mentioned, interoperability. I think we're going to start to see more things that you use this NFT for a lot of different circumstances. For the ticketing, for access into a real world venue, maybe to be able to get some merch there. Then entrance to the metaverse. If you're not in that state or country, maybe you can get in and see that and participate through the metaverse. And maybe you pick up wearables for your merch there virtually. Being able to remix and add different effects and stuff like that, which, you know, what you're working on can come into. So there's so much experience, and to offer something, you know, if you're talking about hyper utility, you don't want just one thing that, oh, well, this comes with a cassette tape or a vinyl. Cool, I like that. I will redeem that. I will get the hoodie, the hat, the kicks, give me it all, right? But I want to see, you know, 4 months, 6 months down the line, do I get something cool coming in from that NFT? Like, shout out Kane Mayfield, Louis C. Rhymes. These guys are making NFTs with utility that just keep giving and giving and giving. Here's a remix that I dropped to your box. Here's a wearable that I dropped to you. And this is months later without asking or prepping it out. They're just like, oh, these are my people that support me. I'm doing something new. I'm trying something different. I want to offer it to those people who are early supporters and maybe also have it for sale on XYZ platform. So there's a lot you can do.
I think the conversation, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, please.
I think the conversation around like hyper utility, especially from an artist standpoint, is really interesting. As you mentioned, being able to go to a concert and do something like scan a POAP, for example, as a collectible for going to that concert, right? I think that's really cool. As well as you'll be able to do things like, hey, you know, the holders of my POAP can now get X, Y, and Z when you come to my next concert. Or, you know, I'll drop a new piece of merch and whoever has that can collect on that as well, right?
Or have the community choose an opener for you at the concert. There's
That's
so
cool.
much, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, at we the company is Weave Music, and we have our own format called .weave files, and we use stems, and that's why that's another aspect. Like for fans, sure, it's about the ticketing, getting access to the artist, but as an artist or a music creator, you must also appreciate the fact that now we can also talk about composability and like making sure we can make these like kick-ass remixes, sampling, have the right track record coming from it, and be able to like remix things with like a clean conscience.
Yes.
But also like have the opportunity to like get your hands on all of these things that currently are like a little bit unachievable unless you do it on TikTok.
I really like what you showed me from what you guys have over at Weave. Like, that's really cool. From a producer standpoint, to be able to take a track and put it up on your app and remix it and do a bunch of things, especially from an app standpoint, I think that's super cool, and a really good utility from a producer standpoint, right? So I think that's really cool.
And for fan engagement. So I've seen a few different, artist projects offer sometimes competitions, remix competitions, async art or warp sound. Some of these places are starting to do similar things where you get stems, you get kind of a unique version of this, or you're able to play around with it, and it makes it, it's kind of gamification, but in a way that's super fun, where people can express, maybe creatively, the fans that weren't, producing music can play with those stems.
So that's another thing. Together with NFTs and Web3, we also have technologies like AI coming to play, meaning that like our job as software creators is to create easier tooling for more people to come in and play with music and have all these resources that are now popping up everywhere. Like, it's just slowly ramping up. But, we have these communities of 3D creators who come and create assets for Sandbox or Decentraland and making money off it. And I think that we can see the same thing happening for music. And I really hope we don't have to listen to this like mundane elevator music in every world you go to. Like, for me, being forced to listen to the same track over and over in a game is like forcing me to look like myself in a metaverse. Like, really need something new and exciting for this space.
I definitely think like with NFTs, like it's really about the programmable nature of it, right? So allowing for even things that we can't conceive of now, or that the artists who put it out didn't even configure originally, where people can be building on top of this in ways that we don't conceive yet. And so, like, I think it's really obvious, and it's important for like artists to have a relationship, with their fan base, and being able to understand who some of their biggest supporters are, and kind of reward them, accordingly. And at the same time, another kind of utility. So, being a ticketing company, we actually have. So, if somebody recorded the concert, the next day the ticket itself turns into a music NFT, where you have access to the recording, where you can enjoy it and rewatch it yourself, or end up selling it on to somebody else. And I think creating a new revenue stream for not only events but for artists, where they have an ongoing revenue stream that's perpetual in nature, and that eventually comes like a river of nickels, right? And so that is important in terms of being able to support that artist, and in new ways.
So Thomas, let me ask you, what are some ways that artists can take advantage of using, let's say, Yellow Heart right now, to be able to move their career into more of a Web3 and try to get more into the space? What are some ideas you might have?
Yeah, so right now we're working on opening up the platform for like self-minting and allowing more artists to come in and kind of self-service. Right now we actually have the ability to issue out music NFTs, whether it's a single or an album. And so I think this is an interesting distinction, because a lot of music NFTs are published on IPFS, which makes it kind of like SoundCloud, because anybody with a link to that can access it. And so we work with a lot of artists who are interested in monetizing that work in a different way. So the token itself gates access not only to a particular song, but it could be an entire album with both audio and video. And so all of our assets come with the ability to stream that kind of content that is unique to that token holder. So I would say in one respect, building that community, but also being able to update and engage that through different kinds of content with the same asset.
Yeah, that's really dope.
I think that's something that we're going to see more and more of, is being able to token gate. So I know that various platforms, an example would be Emanate, which is a streaming platform for Web3. You're able to token gate. So you could have, say, maybe you drop a LP and you've got 6 or 7 tracks in there. You could have the first couple open for anybody to stream, and then if you're liking that, a link straight to the NFT, you buy that NFT, it unlocks the whole album, right? So things like that I think are great use cases.
Keit and I kind of had like a really interesting conversation around token gating. And I think it's really interesting, right? Because we're in a space where we talk about decentralization, but yet, things are starting to become more centralized in certain ways, not too many ways, but you have certain access to certain things because you own an NFT. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean,
didn't mean to put you on the spot, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I think it's on one side, that's sort of the utility these NFTs are offering, right? And for a lot of these events, even like satellite events this week here, there are a few that you can opt in, even if it's token gated, pretty easily, or like it's like reasonable price to pay for something that you can keep and be part of a member. And then there's events like where it's like unachievable for most people, like you just don't have the money to get in there. And I sometimes think it sort of contradicts the Web3 principle of like everything being open and shared, and suddenly it's like, it's only opened and shared for
right,
some
and
sort of
it shouldn't be just pay to play, which is what that sometimes falls into. But I think there's a way to do it where you can have, say, it's an event, whether it's here in a club or in, Crypto Voxels or Decentraland. You have the main area, everybody can come and hear the music. But you have a VIP area where you have to own the token to go back there, and that's, like where the really cool stuff's going on, or, so it's like, that I think is an approach to use token gating, but still keep some, open for everyone at a certain level.
I think especially in music, that's sort of the thing, right? Because if you're an artist, I might not have your NFT, but I still want to listen to your whole album, right?
Yeah.
And then how do you get more fans if people don't listen to your whole music? So it's sort of like, even though you want to make that part of the utility, and the artist, I can't remember her name, Emily, she was the first heavy metal artist to launch a blockchain. She was here earlier and talking about it, how she, on her Discord, which is token gated, she releases her music first there, and it's available for download, but she still goes to Spotify for distribution, right? Because music still needs to flow.
That's a super important point, and I do a lot of onboarding, so I get a lot of people that will be new to the NFT and Web3 space, and they have in their head for some reason the idea that if I start doing NFTs, I can only do that, and I don't know where that comes from, but I run across it a lot, and so I'm like, no, it's not a this or that, it's an and. So you add that in, you can capture some value from the people that are in NFTs. Hopefully, you can bring some of your fan base over, because really you're going to be making more of the profit if you're selling an NFT versus streaming on Spotify or a contract with a label, right? So, but as long as you have the rights to your music, you can, like you said, you drop it for the token holders early, and then it goes out on Spotify or whatever platforms.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we do with a number of artists too. Like, so we'll have the NFT release. We just did one with like G Love from Philadelphia, Julian Lennon, John Lennon's son, and both of those were NFT like early releases, essentially.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting as well, especially from an artist standpoint. Building that into your hyper utility. I don't really like saying that, but just I think that's pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
To have stuff like backstage access for those who own that NFT and stuff like that. So with Yellowheart, can you can do collectible on there, right? I'm sorry.
So it's music, so tickets and music, but also collectibles, so just artwork, and some. We released like different moments that were like videos from captured on tour with like XXS Tentacion. But yeah, so it's primarily ticket and music, but we can do collectibles as well.
So
That's awesome.
that's a great way also for other artists, musicians out there. Maybe you have, you've been for years making material. You've got it in the can, so to speak. You've got music videos you shot with your buddies for low budget or whatever, and often people might get kind of discouraged in the web 2.0 paradigm because they're putting out more than they're getting in to try and make it in music. Well, if you own the rights to that music at least and that material, that's a treasure trove for adding additional content in your NFTs. When you come over and start doing NFTs, you can offer, oh man, I've got this old school video that I'm gonna share just as a unlockable content download for the people that buy this. Like, people need to, I think, look at that and realize a lot of artists have a kind of treasure trove that they can add in as some of this extra utility, whether it's just for fun or,
For music producers, what are some ways that Weave can help us with utility, right? So other than making music on the application.
Yeah, so one of the side effects of our format is the fact that we can do similar, I don't want to call it generative art, but it is generative music in the sense that if you give different versions of the song, if you make a couple of remixes of your song and we put it through our mixer, we can create almost unlimited number of NFTs for you that are all similar but different. The same way most BFEs are all the same but different.
Right.
And so if that's sort of utility that you're looking for as part of your offering, you can come and work with us. The mixer is open for download. If you go on Discord, We Music, if you go on the website, you can find the link. You can just go and download it and play around. It comes with a demo song, so it's easy to get started. But we have some other stuff that we haven't rolled out yet, where we're because we are playing with stems, and I find it super exciting, because finally we can move away from super compressed MP3s and really start taking songs apart, but also keep adding to it. And right now, of course, the artists will be releasing their own tracks. But as I said, composability, that's why I find it so fascinating, because what if you could take these tracks and mute the vocals and then rap on top, or have another singer?
Super exciting. I envision in the future where when we have more interoperability, we could take, at Cypher, we basically have a generative, so an algorithmic beat machine. You mine beats until you get one you like, you rap over it, then we have, the graffiti GAN. So basically you just, you mine your beat, you rap over it, you mine your artwork, and then, it's no cost, lazy mint up into the marketplace with however many additions and your pricing and resale royalties. But I would imagine, somebody makes a Cypher track, if we were able to, get some of your stems and be able to play with it like that, and people could remix it and add in, oh, well, that would be so cool with these horns I heard the other day, so being able to start merging from, even if it's different platforms, tools, to be able to do these kind of remixes and stuff, I think it's going to open up a lot of creativity for both fans and, producers and rappers and guitar players and saxophonists, across the board.
Yeah, like most Web3, I think we're missing so much infrastructure here.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think we're coming to the point where we need to, I'm not even talking about the UX. I'm a UX designer by nature. It's horrible. It's that's why it's so hard to get started, because it's horrible.
We need bridge
and we need to get better.
and
and there's a lot of vendors out there who are doing it already. They have come up with all these different apps, whatever. It's already working. But once we have people onboarded, which is currently like sort of a gatekeeper, right? Yeah. Once we have passed that barrier, we need to start to think about, okay, what is the infrastructure here? Like, what can you do? And we have a lot of people who like have these ideas, but now we need to start building.
It
like,
feels
I'm excited for it.
like it. I mean, it's great. There's a lot of passion out here. It's a little fractured still. Like through the metaverse, through all this, we still need those bridges. And I think some of the people doing some of the most important work are the people bridging blockchains, working on protocols where you can take this wearable into that metaverse and that metaverse. So we need some of those standards. It's still early days, if anybody was wondering.
Yeah, I think we're still very, very early in all this. And if you guys haven't checked out Weave, it's amazing. Yeah, of course. The other day we were on a video chat and Keit showed me the application, and I think just as a music producer like that, it's a really cool application, especially if you're trying to do remixes and you're trying to come up with different ideas, which all the time I have like producer's block, right? Like you try to make something and you're like, I can't make anything. But having an application like that where you can change the tempo, add in different stems, and try different things, I think that's like super cool.
Yeah, super impressive.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think like even with hyper utility, where you can have the same asset, and either you want to listen to the full song, or if I want to bring it into the metaverse, right, and just use some of the backtracks and other things, right, to create a vibe or an atmosphere.
Yeah, because it's all programmable, so and we can make these changes in real time. So as soon as the user makes the change, we can like call on the effect to take place, or mute some stems, or add some stuff. So as you like, that's the magic of it, really.
Right, and I think the underlying kind of what it enables too is that with things like royalties, if I want to take that song and put it into a metaverse during a presentation or something like that, and I can make a micropayment, right? And that micropayment can go to the artist in real time.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And that's another part of the infrastructure we're currently missing, like how to make these smart contracts actually serve us well. Currently, we mainly use it for just keeping track who owns what, but we don't do the royalties. But like we're trying, right? Like people are working on it. But we talk about NFTs owning. What about just borrowing, lending, or renting? Like maybe what's the Spotify of the Web3? And we've seen examples, but there's nothing that has taken off with like scale and hyper utility.
Hyper utility.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And to just like run off what you guys were talking about, say you bring these stems in, you want to use them at your DJ set in Decentraland, and then what about if they have some API where the lighting is changing because of the mood of the song you just put on? Like I think we're gonna get there. It's just there's a lot of building that between where we are now and where we are. Where we were a couple years ago, way different. We've made huge strides in the experience, whether you're in the metaverse or you're streaming music off a Web3 platform. It really is impressive to see. But again, there's a lot of work to be done still to make those micropayments and royalties really set, because even just 2019 was when it was the community that said, we need royalties here for our artists on resales. Like we have this great revolution to open the doors for artists and musicians and everybody. Well, let's not make the same mistakes, and let's get some generational income to these artists while they're still alive. And so that is something important to realize too. And so there's still a long way to go to get that uniform across the board where the royalties are being paid effectually.
I think talking about royalties is it's a little triggering to me, honestly. No, I'm just kidding. I think when it comes to building hyper utility as an artist, as a producer, speaking of going back in time, right? I always look at Lil Wayne, right? He used to put out a bunch of mixtapes, and one of the ways I always think of a way someone can build as a artist, as a producer, is to do free mints, right? Yeah. To go out there, put your music out there, and give it out for free. Build that community. I think that's like a really overlooked utility that people in the music space, do kind of overlook sometimes, right? Because when you put out that mixtape, sometimes the mixtape's always better than the album for some reason. But I just think that's another way to build toward that utility for a lot of up and coming artists.
And what a great part of the culture that we've kind of lost, those mixtape years. So let's bring it back. Let's drop them for free. You know, I mean, I've got a friend, Louis C. Rhymes, and he just dropped a track for, what was it, .01. And some people were like, you're crazy, man. That's like a few bucks. And he was like, no, I want everybody to be able to get it. Like, you know, it's not always about the dollar at the end of the day. You have to build your base and community here. You have to be active on Twitter and Insta and all these places like you would in any other job or passion. You have to put the time in. So just making an NFT with some utility doesn't mean you're going to do well in sales.
It's called work to earn.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, adoption is key.
All right, everybody. This is fantastic. This is a
Thank
great
you.
talk, everybody. Give it up.
Thank you very much.